boys, I've been discussing things recently with certain people. I think we have come to the unanimous decision that I act as the villain of the three of us when it comes to my opinions on movies.
I've never heard you say that before, but now that you say it, I definitely see it.
Yep,
100%. 100%.
I totally agree with that.
Like, we're on episode 6 of this podcast now, and I don't think I've defended a single movie. I think it's just been me hating on
I think you're just a hater.
Oh, I love certain movies.
True.
Ray, don't hate the player, hate the game, man.
Yeah, no, we got a lot of hate for our 2001 opinion, Luke.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Reddit was not.
I think it's our most disliked podcast on YouTube.
It is, yeah. It's the only one we actually have dislikes on.
Yeah. I saw 4. I was like, woo.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't expect people to like me more after this episode. In fact, I expect them to hate me more. Luke, would you like to tell the audience what we're debating today?
I would love to, Tyler. So this week, we are talking about Forrest Gump. In my opinion, is one of the best movies in the 90s. And Tyler has a very different opinion. Tyler, will you speak to that for a second?
You think Forrest Gump was one of the best movies in the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
I agree with him.
What?
Yeah.
What is wrong with both of you?
Many things.
Tyler, you are the only person that I've ever met that doesn't like this movie.
I know I am. And it's not that I don't like the movie. It's just way too overrated.
Imagine being totally wrong about something.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. But first, Luke, you recently did a thing. You want to tell the audience about that thing?
Of course. So, everybody, I started a new series. It is on the Cinebros YouTube channel, so make sure to check that out. It's called 5-Minute Movie Reviews. Each week on Mondays, the videos are going to come out at midnight, kind of like the podcast at midnight. And each week, we're going to be talking about a different movie that I saw during the week. First episode is up now, Train to Busan. It just crossed over 100 views. So if you guys want to go and check that out and support the channel, feel free. I appreciate it. So yeah, check that series out.
And then Ray, you have a new microphone.
Ray does have a new microphone. I hope that I sound better for everyone.
I personally think you sound a lot better. And that's a good thing because you will be moderating this episode.
I will, indeed.
So Ray, would you like to kick us off whenever you would like?
Actually, first, you want to talk about some homework?
Oh, sure. Do you have some?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching the crap out of some stuff.
What do you got, Ray?
So, not only did I watch Taxi Driver off of Dylan's list, but I also watched the Bulls documentary, The Last Dance. Mm-hmm. And honestly, both watches blew me away. Taxi Driver gave me that. As we all know, Joker was on my list. It was like number 9, number 8. And Taxi Driver gave me like, the whole time I was watching, I had a Joker vibe from it. And I love that movie. So, I mean, we all know I was going to love it too.
Yeah, Joker is heavily inspired by it.
Heavily. It's like honestly, if you watch them, they're kind of the same. One of them's just not.
They are.
Yeah. Taxi Driver. He's just a taxi driver in one movie, and the other one he's the Joker.
If you like Taxi Driver, I think it's called King of Comedy. That's the other one that Joker is heavily inspired by.
Which it's also directed by Martin Scorsese and has Robert De Niro in it too.
I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, and people I remember when Joker came out, and all kinds of people, a lot of critics that I like, but I didn't really agree with them on that. They were like, "This movie's just a ripoff of King of Comedy and Taxi Driver," which I mean, yeah, they're really similar, but if the movie's good, I don't really care.
To me, it's like crazy that they had like an idea for that kind of movie that long ago. It came out in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
And another thing, Robert De Niro, I could not even tell that was him. I don't think I've ever seen him that young in a role before.
Yeah, he looks a lot different.
He definitely does look different. But also The Last Dance, it's a sports documentary about the 90s Bulls with Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. I'm a huge basketball fan, so already like it was good for me to watch. But I think that even people who don't play basketball, who are into basketball, can even enjoy watching it because it's just a really inspiring thing to watch. And I know that whenever I got done watching, I just felt good. It's one of those kind of watches. I would recommend both to anyone listening.
I've wanted to watch The Last Dance now. It's on Netflix, right? Isn't that what
It is,
says?
yeah. I binged it in like 2 days. There's 10 episodes. They're all about 50 minutes.
I will have
But
to
it was
check that out.
incredible.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of stories you hear, like Jordan's flu game, like he didn't actually even have the flu. He had food poisoning from pizza boys in Utah who wanted to poison him for the finals.
Oh, wow.
Seriously?
So you get a lot, you get to hear a lot of cool behind the scenes stories from it. But I would definitely recommend both of those. But without further ado, let's hop into the debate. So for this debate, same as usual, we'll start with the opening arguments first. Then we'll go to round 1, which will be the writing round. Round 2, directing. Round 3, acting. And we'll finish it with the closing argument. Whichever one of you wants to start, we can go ahead and hop into the opening argument.
Luke,
Tyler, I want
you can
to
start.
Okay, well, I was going to say you could start, but
No, Luke, after you.
okay.
I'm going to be taking notes, boys.
When you think of 90s movies in general, or honestly just popular movies in general, I feel like Forrest Gump is a movie that comes to mind. To me, there's very few movies that literally everybody, most of the people in my life, even the people I know that aren't that big into movies, have all seen and enjoyed. My parents like it, and my mom and dad have very different movie tastes, and my grandparents liked it, and most of my friends, except for Mr. Ward here, like it. And it's just a movie that everybody can enjoy. It's a very feel-good movie while also having a lot of horrific things as well, as far as like the scenes in the military and all when he's over in Vietnam and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's a movie that everybody can get behind, and it stood the test of time. And I mean, you got to look at the craft that was put, the people behind the camera as well, like Robert Zemeckis, who is, I think, in my opinion, one of the greatest directors ever, at least one of the most influential, because he made the Back to the Future movies and Castaway and this movie, of course, and all kinds of great movies that everybody enjoys. He is such a good director, and I honestly think that his direction of this movie is his best. I'll get more into him in the directing round, but he does a great job. All around great performances, including Tom Hanks and Gary Sinise, who got Oscar nominated for it. And of course, Tom Hanks won. And the script is amazing. They make Forrest Gump a character who on paper seems very unrelatable because he's doing all these like insane things and having an impact in pop culture. And you still feel for the guy and root for him. And he's a very likable character. Tom Hanks is obviously an amazing actor. I mean, everybody knows that. One of the best actors of all time. But again, with the acting and the directing and the revolutionary special effects that I'll also get into later that were used in this movie that still look good today, Forrest Gump is just a movie that everybody can enjoy. It encompasses a large range of genres. There's a lot of comedy. There's, like I said, some horrific sequences, a lot of drama. It's a tearjerker. There's parts in the movie that I actually tear up watching every time. This movie is just something that everybody can enjoy. It stood the test of time. It almost swept the big 5 of the Oscars, which for our listeners who don't know, that is Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and then an actor and actress. And it won all of those except actress. But so it almost swept the Oscars that year.
Jenny couldn't pull it off.
No, she couldn't. No, and I'll be talking about Jenny later on. But this movie is amazing, and just the craft that was put into this movie, and the fact that all these years later, everybody can enjoy it. I mean, the general public and movie critics traditionally do not get along very well and agree on most things, but the consensus is this movie is that everybody can agree that it is really good. I mean, it won all these Oscars, but at the same time, my grandpa, who hasn't been to the theater in years, is quoting it almost daily to me. It's just a movie that stood the test of time. Again, everybody I know personally, most of them love this movie. The craft on display is the reason for that. So this movie is just amazing. I love it. And I will let Tyler give his opening argument now.
All right. So, Luke, you have accurately stated that Forrest Gump, to many Americans, is the ideal pop movie. It is what most people think of when they think of a popular movie. It has Tom Hanks, who everyone knows is one of America's favorite actors. And it was so popular, it even spawned a famous restaurant chain. However, simply because it is popular with the masses does not mean the film has merit on its own. I will tell you why Forrest Gump is popular among Americans. Forrest Gump is popular among Americans because it presents a feel-good American story of a kid who came from nothing and succeeded in life. He lives the American dream, or so the movie thinks. Now, anyone that is interested in film, I think, can agree. The biggest sin a movie can commit is taking itself far too seriously. And Forrest Gump is a movie that thinks it has a lot to say. It thinks it is telling a story of success in America. However, an even worse thing than a movie taking itself too seriously and thinking it has something to say when it doesn't is misunderstanding the message that it is trying to portray. Forrest Gump attempts to show the American dream. It thinks it is giving the audience someone to root for and aspire to be like. However, the image of the American dream that Forrest Gump actually portrays is in complete opposition to the version of the American dream that we are all taught. And if you don't yet know what I'm talking about when I say that, you will hopefully later in the debate once I make my argument clear. Forrest Gump, in my opinion, if thought of from the perspective that I take it, would not be as loved as it is. It is a movie that has been propped up by the acting of Tom Hanks and Gary Sinise, and just by pure nostalgia and feel-good vibes that it presents, which prevents most audiences from looking at it deeper and actually understanding the flaws in the story.
So I have a question for you, Tyler.
Okay.
So I want to hear a little bit more about the American dream. You said that Forrest's American dream isn't the same as the one we are taught. What is the one we are taught, and what is the difference between the one we are taught and Forrest's?
Okay, so I will get into the differences between the version of the American dream that Forrest Gump presents and the actual version of the American dream in the writing round. That's where I'm going to critique the mainly writing. But I will say, to answer your question for the opening argument, the version of the American dream that we're all taught is, you're born in a middle-class family in a stable environment. You have a dad that works, you have a mom that stays home and feeds the kids and does the housework, right? You probably live in the suburbs with your white picket fences. Dad drives a nice car. Kids are loved, go to school, come home every day to a meal cooked on the table. Dad comes home late, all that. They probably marry their high school sweetheart, and, they grow up and they basically repeat this. So they have 2 kids of their own with their wife. They get a high-paying job. They buy their own house in the suburbs, etc., etc. Basically, the American dream is basically a purely middle-class lifestyle. Not like a lower middle class to poverty level like some might think of, but, a stable middle class, you're never hurting for money, but you're not going too far above your means and going to upper class level. Think traditional 50s movies, a 50s.
I have an image in my head.
Yeah, exactly. And then in the next round, I will deconstruct why Forrest Gump completely shatters that, even though it thinks it is propping it up.
Okay. So are both of you done with your opening rounds, or do you have more to add?
I'm finished, I think.
Tyler?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So our opening argument complete. Let's move into round 1 with the writing. And Tyler, you'll be starting this time since Luke started last round.
Yes, I will. Now, let's shatter the American dream, okay? So
let's shatter it.
I think we would both, all of us would agree that Forrest Gump is a movie that is designed to make you feel good. It portrays a special needs child who manages to beat all of the odds, correct?
Correct.
Luke?
Yep. I think that is one of the goals of the filmmakers, yep.
Okay. Well, I think, to me, and I think to most people, the tenet of the American dream is working hard will bring you success. Would you all agree?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think Forrest Gump thinks it is giving that message to the audience. However, it isn't. Forrest Gump does not succeed because he tries hard. Forrest Gump succeeds because of sheer luck. And because the writers want to throw as many historical events into the story as it can. So think about this. Forrest Gump does not get into school because he is intelligent beyond his means. Forrest Gump gets into school because his mom sleeps with the principal. That's why Forrest Gump gets into school. And, you know, he meets Jenny on the bus, a woman who will be an ever-present in his life until the very end. And that is his love interest in the movie. And like the American Dream, she is his like elementary school sweetheart. She's the one he eventually marries. However, she's terrible. You know, when he's getting bullied and she tells him to run and he like starts running as he's being chased and his legs break off. Like, yeah, sure. He worked hard. You know, he broke his leg braces and now he can run. Right. But the problem is he didn't do that out of his own free will. Like, he wasn't working hard to like learn how to walk. She pushed him to it. And the bullies kept chasing him. And here's the second thing. You know, he doesn't even get noticed by the Alabama Scouts because he's, you know, trying to, because he's actively working to make himself like a better athlete. No, he just gets noticed because he's randomly running and he's fast. And we see that at the football game where he's just running without a single clue as to what he's doing. He just runs out of the stadium. He gets drafted into Vietnam. You know, he didn't want to go to Vietnam. He didn't make an active decision to go into Vietnam. It just happened that way. When he actually gets into Vietnam, like, yeah, he meets Bubba and he promises that, you know, he'll start a fishing, like a shrimping company with him. Like, sure, that's good. And he does keep that promise. That is a good thing. That he does keep that promise to Bubba eventually. And, you know, in the battle, he does not survive the attack that kills most of his platoon, you know, by any sort of bravery or talent on his own, but by sheer luck. And when he saves Lieutenant Dan, you know, I don't think, you know, he may have made an active decision to save Lieutenant Dan, but he was not showing any sort of bravery when he did so. I genuinely don't think Forrest acknowledged the danger that they were in when he saved Lieutenant Dan. You know, just to quickly go through some of the other things, you know, he becomes a ping pong star that like fights communism. That's like the best way he can serve. He's not any good at ping pong. He just like hits the ball he hits the ball with the paddle and it just works. Like, he has no talent. He doesn't know what he's doing. You know, all this stuff. You know, he meets Jenny a few more times and like they randomly connect more and more. He tries to marry her, doesn't work. She leaves. He, you know, starts running around the country, you know, just cause he has no reason. He has no motivation to doing it. And, you know, that's, you know, questioning. He has no reason to do it. And then, you know, when he decides he's done, he's just done. And he goes home and he finally gets to, you know, be with the girl of his dreams, the girl he's always known, the only one he's ever wanted. And boom, turns out they have a kid. They have a kid who is perfect at everything. And then everybody dies. And then that's the movie, really. Like, he's not succeeded, you know, past his means, really. Like, no one knows who he is still. He succeeded based off of luck alone. You know, I completely forgot to mention the whole, like, shrimping boat thing, where, you know, him and Dan are trying to catch some shrimp, and then, boom, a hurricane goes by and, you know, sinks all the other boats. And, you know, it's obviously intended to be like a metaphor for, like, Forrest's belief in God, and, like, being, like, his belief in God being what brought him success, and, like, he's being rewarded for his belief. He doesn't believe in God. He believes in God because Lieutenant Dan told him to. Like, he did not make that active decision to believe himself and was rewarded for it. It was pure luck by Lieutenant Dan and him. I will let Luke speak and give some of his arguments for the writing round, but like, that's my main critique of Forrest Gump, is that it completely misunderstands the message that it's trying to portray.
Okay, Tyler, good argument. Luke, you ready to go?
I'm ready. Yeah. Okay, Tyler. So I see where you are. Where you're coming from here. My thing is that I don't think it was, and this might have, and you know what? Some people might read into the movie and think this way, but for me, the thing that I like the most about this movie is the contrast that this guy who, I mean, obviously has some mental deficiencies. You know, special needs. And I love how all these things kind of happen and he does all these amazing things, but that's not his goal. His goal is not for any recognition or anything. All he wants to do is be with Jenny. And I think the fact that it subverts the American dream and is not at all the typical American dream is more entertaining. It'd be boring to see a movie portraying the American dream that is more straight-laced and he really does want to go to Vietnam and it's like a serious war movie. Well, no, he just kind of happens, he gets drafted or, he's a star athlete who grows up to be very successful and have a family. Well, no, it just kind of happens and he just is really fast and just takes off running. He doesn't really know what he's doing. And it's not his goal to have any recognition and to have a typical American dream. I think and again, that is my main argument here is that my favorite part about the movie is the fact that all these things are happening and he only has one goal in mind, and that's to be with Jenny. You don't even know if that means, and talking about American Dream, you don't even know if that means that he wants to marry her or have kids with her. He just wants to be with her, despite the fact that she puts him through the ringer, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But I like the fact that this isn't the American dream, and it shows that someone can be successful even though that's not their initial goal, is to be widely successful. And you're right, by the end, people don't know him, perfectly content with that. And I just think that to say that the movie's main flaw is that we don't have the American dream that is typical, I like the fact that it shows an American dream that is so different. And it's not the typical American dream. And I think if it had shown the American dream like Tyler talked about and had succeeded in what Tyler thinks the movie was trying to do, that it'd be a lot more boring, a lot less exciting. It'd be a movie that we've seen a million times before. This movie's so unique in the fact that basically Forrest just stumbles into things and it provides a large amount of comedy, and his goal is the same. He just wants to be with Jenny. He meets presidents and talks to John Lennon and becomes an international ping pong star, but none of that was his goal. Now, I think the filmmakers think their goal wasn't to just provide us with, kind of show us the American dream through hard work. Well, no, Forrest wasn't really trying to work hard. He just wanted to be with this girl. And I like that. I like the fact that he ultimately succeeds in an American dream without making any attempt to. I don't think that this movie is trying to present us with the regular American dream. I guess that's where we just have different opinions on the goal of the filmmakers, but that's really all I have to say there, is that I don't think that that was their goal, to show us the typical American dream, like you were saying. Also, to kind of get into another aspect of the writing, I think this movie has one of the most well-written side characters in any movie, which is Lieutenant Dan. And I just love his character progression throughout the movie. He starts off very, straight-laced, almost like a jerk. And he's had members of his family all die in combat. That's what he thinks is going to happen to him. And Forrest, again, because he's trying to find Bubba, almost kind of accidentally saves everybody in a way. And, of course, he ends up getting the Medal of Honor. And because of that, Lieutenant Dan is resentful of Forrest, because you even hear he'd rather die in combat than be left a cripple, because he's going to lose his legs. And throughout the course of the movie, with his friendship through Forrest and seeing where he is at the beginning of the movie and at the end of the movie, he's had an entire character arc and has just flipped as a character. And I just love that it takes this straight-laced military guy who would rather die in combat than lose his legs to eventually be one of Forrest's best friends and to learn to accept life as that. And he ends up settling down at the end of the movie. Lieutenant Dan is just very well fleshed out. It's the side characters, it's the people that Forrest impacts in his life that is what's so awesome about the writing. A guy who, again, has literally one thing on his mind. I guess you could say two, because after Bubba dies, he does the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company thing, but on the ship, on the shrimp boat. But pretty much throughout the movie has one goal. And I mean, even when he's sitting on the bench and talking to the woman, their conversation, he's just talking to her, just telling her things to pass the time. And at one point she starts to tear up, because it's just everything he's saying is so emotionally impactful. Everything he's saying is touching the lives of all these people and leaving marks through history. And that's not his goal. And I love that. I love the fact that he's so oblivious to the awesome things that have happened in his life. And I just think that's very interesting. And that's a thing you don't see in movies most of the time. Again, this isn't your typical rags to riches thing, because like you said, he's not rich at the end. And I think the fact that he's not, and he's with Jenny for a little bit and she ends up dying, I think that actually is a perfect ending to the movie. It's obviously sad that she died, but she put him through the ringer and was kind of a jerk. So
Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up. He was a multi-millionaire and owner of a very successful business by the time of the end of the movie.
Okay, well, yes, but okay, I could have worded it different. Basically what I was meaning was that, okay, basically what I was saying is that to him, I guess, that stuff didn't matter much. So yeah, technically he was successful.
I know what you're trying to say, Luke. You're trying to say he didn't care about the money.
Exactly. Yeah.
At the end of the day, he still
Ray, you're putting words into his mouth.
I'm
Nope,
sorry. I'm
Tyler,
sorry.
Tyler,
I was just saying I knew what he was. I could tell that's what he was trying to say.
Tyler, you know that's what I mean.
I know.
The cheap
I
shots.
know. Cheap shots
But
win
anyway-
the debate, Sloop.
But anyway, I
Hey,
think
that was a really good cheap shot. You had him.
Well, yeah.
shaking there for a second.
It was like how I had Tristan last episode. I just come up with a left hook and then. But again, to kind of close out my thoughts on the writing, I love the fact that this movie provides us with, and again, you can say the term American dream, but I love the fact that it provides us with a subverted example of that, and people can still. It shows people that there are different ways to live an American dream, not just one. You know, not just the middle class, grew up in a middle class family, did all this stuff. There's different ways to live out a American dream. Maybe not the one we've heard, but I love how it subverts that. Forrest is obviously he's just a very likable character. You know, he's not fleshed out in the sense that we know how he is throughout the whole movie, but he doesn't really need to be. He's like our audience guide through the movie, and he's awesome. And again, the way he touches all the side characters in the movie, he touches their lives. And Lieutenant Dan is so well written. Jenny, I'm not a big fan of Jenny, but I feel like that's most people's problem with the movie. Now she did have like a traumatic past and all kinds of stuff go on, and she ends up being with him at the end. But again, you know, she's not the best character. But other than that, Lieutenant Dan's great. Forrest is super likable. There's a scene in the movie, and it's so emotionally impactful. And this script is very good at switching tones quick. You know, it makes us feel good, and then it'll have surprisingly very emotional moments in a movie where, you know, when you think about it, you're like, should this movie be like a tear fest? But honestly, the part where he goes back to Jenny, and like Tyler said, he sees that he has a son, and he finds out that that is his son. And you can see he's starting to get upset, and he's starting to tear up because he doesn't want his son to be, he thinks that his son might be special needs like he is. And of course, he's like, is he smart or is he like me? And that's just that brings tears to my eyes every time. It's so emotionally impactful. And the fact that this movie can switch tones like that is very impressive to me. So I think it's a very well-written script. It won Best Adapted Screenplay from a book, which I haven't read the book, but I heard it's a lot different than the movie. But again, that's basically all I have to say about the writing.
Okay, but Luke, let me. So I think we all agree that part of the American dream is that everyone can succeed in America, right? Like America is like the land for opportunists, like to find themselves, right?
Yeah.
Surely you can't argue that Forrest Gump doesn't try to portray the American dream. Like this kid, he has mental deficiencies, and he literally lives the life that so many people would want to live.
Okay, but I see what you're saying.
By luck.
That's a good thing about. I know, but that's the thing about the movies, that he does all that stuff and he doesn't even care. That's where a lot of the humor is drawn from in the movie, is that he doesn't really care about it. And again, he does live out the American dream. It's just not the like typical one that you said. I don't think the movie's trying to portray the typical American dream. I think it's just trying to say that everybody can succeed, like you said. So it is trying to portray that everybody can succeed. I don't think it's trying to portray like a straight-laced, like typical American dream, which I feel like that's what you think the filmmakers are trying to do. And I just don't think that was their goal.
But if you listen to anyone say why they like Forrest Gump, the large majority of them will say that Forrest Gump represents ideal American. You know, he's virtuous. He is determined. He just wants to live with the girl that he's always known. He wants to live in a small house. You know, he wants to and all this stuff. And he succeeds in that mission. But my problem with it is he doesn't succeed because of any sort of attempt on his own. It just is given to him by the writers of this movie.
See, and I guess, I see what you're saying, but I'm fine with that, honestly. Again, that's where a lot of the humor is drawn from. And Tyler, I guess we have talked to different people about why they like this movie, because most of the people I've talked to like it because of obviously the stuff in the history and the quotable lines and stuff. I think the deep dive you're taking is really admirable, but I feel like it honestly went a little too deep and went off the rails a little bit. I think most people
off the rails.
Yeah, I think so.
How's it go off the rails, Luke?
Well, just because...
What argument I made is not valid?
I don't think the argument is valid that people who watch this movie like it because it portrays the typical American, which Forrest Gump is so clearly not. And that, again, is why I like this movie and why I think a lot of people like this movie, and was the goal of the filmmakers, in my opinion, was that it's portraying a guy who, like you said, does succeed in all this stuff, but he doesn't have the mindset that most Americans do when they do this stuff. He's just trying to... Again, he does a lot of things that trump the American dream, quite honestly. You know what I mean? Like has all kinds of money and does all these things and meets all kinds of historical figures and has the giant run across America and all kinds of stuff. And I just don't think that I think that's what the movie was going for, is it's showing that not necessarily that everybody can be successful in America. It's showing that this guy was successful and that wasn't even really his goal. And I think that's where a lot of humor is drawn, and I think it's really cool. I mean, again, this is one of those movies where, since it is so widespread and like people love it and it's very broad, that, you know, it's hard for me not to just say that people like the historical events and stuff, because they do. I mean, my parents were talking to me about watching this in the 90s, and they loved it even then, and it was very impressive then. And again, I just don't think that most people who watch this movie are looking as deep into it about the American dream as you're saying. I get what you're saying, but I just feel like that's too deep of a dive for Forrest Gump. I feel like, and I don't think that in the end, even with what you're saying, I don't think that really your point is what the filmmakers are trying to do. So I just don't agree. I don't think you'll be able, I mean, you might convince Ray because that's what you're trying to do, right? But I don't think you'll convince me of that.
Okay, and then, you know what, that's totally fine. We can agree to disagree. I will just leave this portion of my argument. Ray, I want you to consider what I said earlier, that just because a lot of people believe something doesn't mean it has merit. So if the majority of people that watch this movie believe the way that Luke does, that doesn't necessarily mean that that opinion has merit, and it doesn't mean that that's simply what the filmmakers are going for. And Luke, before we move on, because we're kind of going long in this writing bit, I just want to ask you one final question.
Okay.
What is it about the character of Forrest Gump that you personally find relatable?
That I personally find relatable?
Yes. Because you mentioned that Forrest was supposed to be a relatable character earlier.
Well, relatable might not have been the best word. Let me just say that I think I actually did misspeak, because the things he's doing aren't very relatable. But I think that the fact that he is just an average guy, and I mean, he is an average guy and he does all these amazing things. So I don't really know. I mean, it just kind of shows that a guy who comes from much less than lower class, like very much so, like in poverty, and has special needs, and, you know, his father wasn't ever in the picture. And it takes somebody like him, and he's just so he's so naive about the world, and that's probably because of his, again, special needs. He's so naive about the world, and he just has such good intentions in everything he does that it makes him incredibly likable, and you just root for him the whole time. Even when he is just stumbling into stuff, I mean, I still root for the guy. So I think relatable might have been I might have misspoke on that. Because, yeah, he's not really that relatable, but to me, I don't really think he needs to be. That's what I think. So I guess that's my bad. I didn't mean to say relatable.
Okay, then. I'm done. Ray, I just want you to consider that Forrest succeeds by luck and not by merit, but I'm going to move on to directing.
And Ray, I just want you to consider that that Forrest doesn't care about those successes really. And I think that's where you can draw a lot of humor, and that's where this movie is different than other movies where people are trying to do that. But yeah, let's move on.
Good round out of the both of you. I honestly don't even remember who started because it went so long.
I started.
Tyler started. So, yep. Luke, you'll start us off in the directing round whenever you're ready.
Okay. So, and you know what? To give Tyler some credit, this is the next round. So, to give Tyler some credit, I can definitely see where he's coming from. You know, the script is the easiest part of this movie to look at and attempt to dissect like he was doing. You know, I could see how you could do that with the script of a movie. Really, any movie, that's probably the part that you can look at and say, you know what, there's things I can pick apart in that. But the directing of this movie is something that I feel like everybody can unanimously agree on. It's fantastic. Robert Zemeckis, if you are a film lover, maybe not even like a big film lover, like if you are a lover of popular movies, you'll probably know Robert Zemeckis. Again, he's made a lot of movies with Tom Hanks, like Castaway, and of course this movie, and then he made all three of the Back to the Future movies, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which was revolutionary at the time. He's a great filmmaker. And he does a great job in this movie. I think the way the shots are set up and the camera pans in this movie are very impressive. I honestly do think that this might not be my favorite movie of his. I do love this movie. It might not be my favorite of his, but I think it's the movie where he directed it the best. And he doesn't normally write scripts. He didn't write the script for this movie. He's definitely a visual storyteller, and everything he does just plays along with the script just so well. The way he sets up shots, the way camera like slowly pans in, and the way shots are set up in this movie is just insane. I mean, I think that's something that people can't really argue about this movie. And the thing for me that makes Robert Zemeckis such a great filmmaker, and in this movie in particular, is his use of CGI and special effects. A lot of movies nowadays, and for the past, I guess ever since CGI was a thing, have tried to make CGI like the focal point of all of their effect. There's a really good YouTuber on YouTube, obviously. Dead Meat is the channel. He talks about horror films. He's really good. And one of his biggest pet peeves, and basically all the people he talks about that make special effects for not just horror movies, but movies in general, just do not like to use CGI because it looks bad. And why does it look bad? It's because they try to show everything in CGI. A lot of movies are guilty of that. Now, if you're someone like Marvel, where you can throw $200-300 million at something, well, yeah, the special effects are all CGI and they're going to look fantastic because you have the top studios working on them. But for the most part, if all of your effects are, if CG is used throughout your movie, maybe for all the backgrounds, maybe like the Star Wars prequels, which we'll probably talk about in a later episode. But those movies use special effects in such, just as a crutch. George Lucas especially, you know, I don't know if he really liked PS2 cutscenes back in the day because that's what all the prequels look like. But anyway, we'll get into the prequels in another time. That's a rant that's a rabbit hole I can go down. But Robert Zemeckis uses CGI in this movie and other movies like it's intended to be used. Sparingly, but when it is there, it's done very well. You know, obviously, if this whole movie was shot on a green screen or something, it would look horrible, obviously. And of course, I don't think anybody in their right mind would try to do something like that for this movie. I'm sure there are movies where all the backgrounds are green screens, but that would probably look really bad. But the special effects in this movie were groundbreaking at the time. And honestly, in my opinion, I think if you blink, you'll miss them. A lot of times you'll kind of think, wow, there was that much CGI and money going into that shot, and it was used so well. In particular, I'm talking about the scenes with Lieutenant Dan's legs, because as we know, Gary Sinise is a very popular actor, Oscar-nominated actor. He's mainly in TV now, but he obviously has two legs. And there's a really awesome YouTube channel. Again, I keep talking about YouTube channels, but called the Corridor.
Subscribe to ours, by the way.
Yep, subscribe to our YouTube channel while you're at it. Cinebros, thank you. But the Corridor crew, if either you've heard of them, Tyler, you've heard of them.
I haven't.
Okay, they do like the CGI artists. They do like CGI artists react to good.
Oh, okay, yeah,
CGI. Yeah. Well, they talk about Forrest Gump and this use of special effects, and they just basically gush over how Robert Zemeckis implements special effects. Because while most directors don't have as hands-on of stuff into these special effects, like, again, directors typically aren't CGI artists and do all that stuff. Robert Zemeckis is known for amazing visual effects. I mean, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? You know, it looks kind of cheesy now, but at the time, integrating cartoons with live action, especially how early on as that movie came out, was very impressive. And Robert Zemeckis had a real hand in that. He's very into special effects and into how I think all filmmakers should use them, which is not as a crutch, but use them perfectly. And I think he uses them perfectly. Lieutenant Dan's legs, the parts where he is sitting in a chair, for the most part, no joke, there's all kinds of CGI being used there to cover up his legs. And I mean, it makes sense because there are clear shots of his stumps that he has where his legs used to be. And a lot of that is CGI, and it looks so good. And you got to think, when this movie came out in like the early to mid 90s, 1994, that's just amazing. And Robert Zemeckis, if you look into the production of the movie, had a real hand in how these special effects and how CGI would be used. Originally, the studio wanted a lot more CGI to be used in this movie for a lot more scenes. And Robert Zemeckis turned them down. And he's just such a great visual director, and he's very good with implementing special effects into his film. So the legs look great. Again, or the lack of legs looks great. I guess that's how you would say it. But I mean, it looks great. Still to this day, it looks fantastic. And the scenes where Forrest is meeting, John F. Kennedy and John Lennon, I will go as far as to say there are probably some shots that don't look as good nowadays, but they still look pretty darn good. I watched this yesterday in preparation for this video or for this episode, and it still looks really good. It looks like he was actually there, especially when he shakes JFK's hand when he's, doing at the White House for the All-American football, when he's playing football at Alabama, and he meets him and he's talking to him, and close-up shots of JFK's face talking to Forrest. It just looks great. I still don't really fully know how they did all that stuff because CGI and stuff is not really my background. I don't know a ton about it, but I know that all of that is CGI, and it looks amazing. Talking about the directing this round, Robert Zemeckis helmed this movie better than I think anybody could. He directed the heck out of this movie. Everything. I mean, if you put a different director on here, I don't think we'd be talking about this movie today. I think if you replace him or Tom Hanks, or maybe just, if you replace Robert Zemeckis and put another director in, I just don't think it would be nearly as good.
Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg is also really good. I think for this movie,
and Spielberg was great in the 90s as well.
He was really good. Yep. If I will say that, when the studio was trying to find someone to get, they were trying to get Spielberg, but I think he was doing something else at the time. He might have been working on AI, artificial intelligence. is really bad if you guys haven't seen it. But Robert Zemeckis is such a great director, and I think this is his best directed film on his part, and he won Best Director. And, you know, Quentin Tarantino was nominated that year, and you guys know I love Tarantino. But I think that Robert Zemeckis definitely should have won it over him, and I'm glad he did. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about the directing.
Okay. Tyler, we'll let you hop up next.
All right, Luke, I'm going to ask you a question. Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, within film circles, I've always heard that this movie is, like, directed masterfully, right? That Zemeckis did such a good job. And, you know, we've all heard the CGI, like, in this movie. That's, like, great. Like, you know, the opening sequence especially is, like, a really fantastic scene. However, you know, when I was watching this movie, and, you know, I did know all the CGI and stuff, so, like, yeah, of course, you got to give Zemeckis credit for that one. But to be honest, like, other than the CGI, nothing really special stood out about the directing. So I wonder if you could just give me some more examples, like, directing that stood out to you in this movie.
I just think the way, I mean, a lot of the shots were set up were really good. He just helmed it very well. You could see his vision on the screen. Of course, you know, I don't know as much about directing as you do. I just know that if there is bad directing in a movie, it is easy to pick out. And I think he does a really good job. You know, I think it is elevated a little bit because of his name being attached to it. But again, I just don't think anybody else could have done the movie like he did. And obviously, special effects are very important. Other than special effects, you know, there have been better directed movies, but the crux of my argument is the implementation of special effects, which I feel like you're not giving as much credit as it should be given, because especially for the time that it came out and for how it's implemented, is just like, I mean, it's absolutely groundbreaking. Well, that alone, I think should have won him the Oscar for Best Director that year, and it did. So I mean, that's like the core of my argument. You know, other stuff I don't know as much about directing as you do, but it's just, I mean, it looks very good, and the shots are set up well, and there's not a whole lot to say about it. I don't think, unless you want to like nitpick, but.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not gonna nitpick. You know, I don't have much to say for the directing in this movie, because like it is competently directed. That's true. There's no like glaring directing mistakes. And, you know, as you mentioned, the CGI is obviously great. How much of that came down to Robert Zemeckis and not the VFX team, we won't know. But I will say, you know, the crux of my argument for this entire debate is that this movie is just overrated by the public.
Right.
Like, it's not a bad movie. It's just massively overrated. And I think that also extends to the direct. You know, I think if this movie like flopped in theaters, but it was directed the same way, like even with all the CGI, but it flopped in theaters, didn't really resonate with the audiences, I don't think we would see Robert Zemeckis get nearly as praised for this movie as he does. I think that this movie being popular just leads more people to think that he was better at directing it than he actually was.
Okay.
I don't think past the CGI there was anything special about how he directed the movie, and I think it could have been done, you know, at the same level or possibly better by another director like Spielberg.
I think Spielberg would have done a good job, but I just think Zemeckis was the absolute perfect director for this movie. And a thing that I didn't touch on, I probably should have touched on it before, is, you know, his relationship with Tom Hanks is obviously a very good relationship, very good actor-director relationship, and now I've got a lot of good things to say about Tom Hanks' acting ability and the acting around, but you can see Robert Zemeckis' vision on screen, and I think you honestly can tell that this is a Zemeckis movie. There's like a quality to it, and I don't really know how to describe it. But I mean, and I know you all have seen a ton of his other movies, I feel like there's just a quality about his movies that you honestly tell. Not counting the Polar Express, because that's, you know, CGI. But I just think that there wasn't anybody else who could have done this movie as good as him. Now, I agree with Tyler in the sense that there are other directors who could do this, and it, you know, be a good job, be very well done. But I think the fact that Zemeckis helmed the movie enhances it quite a bit. You know, I won't say that nobody else could have directed this movie, because that's not true. I mean, like you said, Spielberg would have done a good job, but I just think for this particular movie, Zemeckis was the perfect director for it. And that's really, I don't have much else to say about it.
Yeah, I don't either. My argument is just that the directing is overrated, and if the movie had flopped, it wouldn't be nearly as praised as it is.
Okay, so with the round 2 arguments being done, we'll hop into round 3. the acting round, and Luke started us off last round. So Tyler, go ahead.
I don't think much in the negative can be said about the acting in this movie. Tom Hanks, obviously a phenomenal actor, like one of America's like sweetheart actors. He does a very competent job for the most part in this movie. I think that his performance, like in the large majority of the movie, may be slightly overrated, but in the end, he does shine a lot, and you obviously see that classic Tom Hanks acting ability that we all know and love. And that's, think about the other characters, like Gary Sinise obviously does a great job as Lieutenant Dan. Jenny is competent as well. I don't have much to say in the negative for the acting of this movie because, even I, as someone that thinks the movie is overrated, I have to give credit to the actors. They do a fairly good job, especially Tom Hanks and Gary Sinise. I think I've said his name differently every single time I've said it, by the way. I don't know which way is correct pronunciation. But yeah, they're all fairly good. I'll let Luke talk now because I don't have much to say about it.
So yeah, like Tyler was saying, there isn't really much to say. I don't think there's really anything to say negative about the acting. Tom Hanks, to me, is the best part of the movie. I don't really think there is another actor who could have pulled this off. And the reason I say that is because in the script, and obviously I am not qualified at all to talk about people who have special needs, and I haven't worked with people like that, and I'm not qualified to talk about it. But if you look at the script for this movie, Forrest Gump is a character that, you can honestly go a little too over the top with. An actor can try so much to portray his special needs that it just comes off as, oh, that actor is definitely just pretending to have special needs. And Tom Hanks does such a good job he's very convincingly special needs, but he doesn't go over the top with it. He doesn't go to the length where there are some other movies like Radio with Cuba Gooding Jr., if you guys have ever seen that. Really bad movie. He plays a character who is very special needs, and his performance is considered very bad. He won like the Razzie for worst actor. And the reason for it, and pretty much all reviews I've read of that movie says that, and of this movie for that general, say that special, actors who don't have special needs portraying special needs characters, it's like it's a tricky subject to pull off, to do well and do respectfully, because if you go the route that Radio did, then it almost pokes fun at people like that, and that's not a good thing, obviously. And Tom Hanks does it with such grace and such respect for special needs people. He does such a good job, and I have heard people say that his accent is a little too much in this movie, but I don't think so. I think he portrays it very well, just a Southern guy who has special needs, and I think he plays the part amazingly in the emotional scenes. He's very funny, and he's very likable, because Tom Hanks is a likable actor, but he's very likable, and he portrays the character very well. Again, the script like this, if any other actor, in my opinion, and you know how much I'm really into acting. That's probably my favorite aspect of films in general is the acting. And I don't know if there is another actor, definitely not at this point, all these years later, looking back, that could have tackled that role and done it better. I don't think. I think that, especially the script of this movie could have turned out really bad if Tom Hanks went so over the top that you couldn't take him seriously. And when you're laughing in this movie, the comedy is you're not laughing at Tom Hanks. You're not laughing at Forrest. You're laughing with Forrest, and you're laughing because he's such a likable guy. And it's just a very feel-good movie like we've talked about. But Tom Hanks plays it so well. He thins the line very well between going over the top and being respectful to special needs people. He does a phenomenal job. One Best Actor, I think this is one of the best performances by an actor in a movie, I think. And just in my opinion, I think it's great. And Gary Sinise is also great. And Tyler talked about him. I think Gary Sinise rivals Tom Hanks almost. He's not as good, but it's close. Gary Sinise portrays all of Lieutenant Dan's mannerisms and his emotions very well. Again, he takes what was given to him in the script and just amplifies it to like the ninth degree. Just does such a phenomenal job with the character and just explores his emotions very well. And Jenny, obviously, I've talked about Jenny. I don't like Jenny very much. Again, she had a traumatic past, so I give her some leeway. But the way she treats Forrest in this movie is very bad. Obviously, we all know that. But the actress, Robin Wright, plays Jenny. And she does a really good job. She's not nearly on the same level as Tom Hanks and Gary Sinise, but I don't really think she needed to be. She served her purpose, and she did a good job. And honestly, I think an underrated performance is Michael T. Williamson, who plays Bubba in the movie, which I haven't talked about Bubba much. I mean, we've mentioned him in passing, but he plays Forrest, a friend that he meets in the Army and becomes good buddies with, who tragically passes away. But he does a great job, and I really haven't seen him in much else. The only other thing I've seen him in was not the newest Purge movie, but the one before that. But yeah, Michael T. Williamson does a really good job. Again, this is a character who, even more so than Forrest, could come off as someone who is very, not to sound mean, but if the actor goes too far with it, then it can be offensive to people with special needs. And just like Tom Hanks, it doesn't portray him that way at all. It goes very well, and it's very respectful to people with special needs, and because he obviously has, some special needs as well. All around, all the acting in this movie is just phenomenal. Tom Hanks and Gary Sinise in particular both should have won Oscars. Tom Hanks obviously won it, well-deserved. I think it's a crime Gary Sinise didn't win it, but that's probably, it's whatever. He still got nominated. That's more actors will get in their life. So Gary Sinise is doing fine, but the acting in this movie is phenomenal. There's not much more I have to say about it. So,
just one last comment. And, I feel, Luke, that Tom Hanks did kind of overplay it a little bit. You think so? In the first little bit, yeah, with his accent especially. I think he overplayed it slightly.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. I don't agree. I can definitely see where you're coming from on that, but I just don't agree with that. I think it's consistently great throughout the movie, but I can see what you're saying.
I think it's time to wrap this debate up and head into the closing arguments. Luke, let's hear from you.
Okay. So, like I stated before, Forrest Gump is a movie that everybody can enjoy. Most people I know love it for a good reason. There are movies out there that all kinds of people love that really aren't that good. And the fact that this movie can be so widespread to a wide audience and also be so good also be very complex at the same time, and to explore special needs and other things in a very good way. And it does tackle a lot of themes, and me and Tyler have talked a whole lot about themes in the American Dream, but I love the fact that this movie gives us a version of the American Dream that we're not used to seeing. It's a very different American Dream, and I like the fact that it subverts our expectations, and I just really enjoy that. I love the fact that Forrest is a very, very sweet, but he's naive in the world. He does all these amazing things, but he has all these amazing successes, and like Tyler said, he's a millionaire by the end, but he doesn't even really care about all that stuff. He's content with Jenny, and then he's content, with his son at the end, and I just love that. Very few movies show success stories where the main character just kind of happens to be successful. And you know what? Tyler does think that is a flaw of the movie, but I don't think so, because Forrest's such a likable person, and I can get behind all that because his intentions were in the right place. But this movie is very well made. Robert Zemeckis does an amazing job helming the film. The CGI is absolutely fantastically implemented and groundbreaking for the time, and I still think it looks really good, especially Lieutenant Dan's legs. So the directing's great. I love the script, and even, it does provide a lot of audience enjoyment, a lot of fan service in a way. I don't know if you could call it that for this movie, but servicing the audience with all the, events in the past and all the historical figures he meets, but that just provides extra enjoyment for everybody. And I just like the fact that the movie explores that, because I don't think a lot of movies do. There's not very many success stories where the main character doesn't really care about being successful. So I like that about this movie. I really enjoy that. The script is very good. The directing's good. The acting is amazing. Tom Hanks is probably my favorite performance by Tom Hanks in a movie. I'd say so. He's great, and he's
it's
had a lot
close.
Of good performances.
Hard to choose.
Right. I think his performance in Castaway is underrated. Ray, since you watched Castaway, you talked about.
Oh, I thought he gave a great performance in Castaway.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah.
Even though there wasn't even a lot of talking going on, he still gave a great performance.
Oh yeah. I think he should have been nominated. I don't think he was, but should have been. But yeah, Tom Hanks is amazing. Gary Sinise is awesome. Lieutenant Dan is one of my favorite supporting characters in a movie of all time. His character arc is he's very well written, very fleshed out. This movie is a triumph. I will say it, Tyler, and you probably won't agree. I think it is a triumph of filmmaking. It's something that still stands the test of time years later, and I've loved this movie. I feel like I've defended it pretty well. That is my closing argument.
All right, let's see if Tyler can say anything to help his case here.
All right. Well, I started the opening argument with introducing that I view Forrest Gump as a movie that misunderstands this message. And, Ray, you asked me in that round to explain what I meant. And I hope that through my performance in the writing round, I have given you enough to understand my viewpoint on why this movie fails thematically. I think that Luke is blinded by his own personal feelings to this movie and in his own interpretation of what the filmmakers are trying to portray. I think that this movie is so popular because so many people see something to root for in the movie. However, I would argue that one should not root for Forrest Gump because Forrest Gump does not succeed by his own merit. He succeeds purely by luck. And I don't think the people that look at this movie as to root for a character should be rooting for a character who accomplishes nothing on his own. If you want to root for a character in this movie, the side character, Lieutenant Dan, is a much more, I know where you're
going.
Lieutenant Dan is a much more valiant character with his own problems who acts enough for himself to work through them. Luke, you mentioned earlier, like, how good his arc is. And, while Lieutenant Dan's arc, it's essentially just your common injured war vet arc. He's injured, he's mad at the world, but eventually he, comes around and gets his life back together. I think that is much more of the American dream than what we are seeing by Forrest. I think that this movie and the praise that it gets benefits far too much off the misunderstanding of the message of the film, as well off of the viewer's own personal sense of nostalgia. And, keep in mind, we're not debating how the movie makes you feel, because, if we debated opinions, then no one would ever win because you can't debate opinions. So some people are going to like this movie and because that it gives them nostalgia. But, we can't just deny the obvious flaws in the movie because it makes you feel a sense of nostalgia and it makes you feel good watching because it reminds you of a time long gone. If you discount the nostalgia factor for this movie for a lot of people, which makes them like it, and you discount the character traits of Forrest that I feel they conjure in their own head that don't exist in this movie, I think this movie would be much less popular. And as I said, Robert Zemeckis gets a lot of praise for directing this movie. I think that praise largely relies on this movie being so popular. And, I hope enough that I have said will, sway you, Ray, into understanding where I'm coming from, and maybe it has even changed your opinion slightly.
I agree with you about a lot of what you said about Forrest's character. But I think, again, just like he touches all these events in history and plays a part in all these events, I think that is his role in the movie. I agree with what you said about him, but his goal isn't or how they portray him isn't like the typical main character, and I think we can both agree on that. And his role in the movie really, and again, he isn't trying to do all these miraculous things and succeed in all these ways. And the point of this movie, just like how he touches all these events in history and just how he plays a part in all these and the impact he leaves on them, is the same thing with the characters. I mean, he basically takes Lieutenant Dan from the brink of mental collapse and frustration. And because Forrest was just in his life, again, Forrest was just there in these scenarios. But because of these things he does, and even though he doesn't get recognition for these things, like Kyler said, he still leaves an impact in everything that he touches, even if he specifically is not obviously a big celebrity. I think that's his goal in the movie. I think his goal is to just inspire others, and I think he does a good job at inspiring others without even really doing much. So I think that is a success with the script, in my opinion. But again, that's it.
Like Luke just said, a lot of people find inspiration in the character of Forrest, but just to summarize, I think that much of what they see in Forrest has been conjured up by what they want to see in Forrest and not what is actually there. Ray, I think if you rewatch this movie, having heard everything I said of it, you will see even more that really the character of Forrest Gump is not what people have presented it to be. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, so that concludes the great debate of Forrest Gump between Tyler and Luke. I do have a winner, but first we'll go through each round to see who won each round, starting with the opening argument, which was won by the one and only Luke Smith.
Thank you, sir.
Luke won this round. I feel like you both gave good arguments in this round. I think Luke just had a little bit more. He had the edge on you. I feel like if you'd have gave me a little bit more that you gave in the writing round, Tyler, which you did win.
Good.
That you perhaps could have won the opening argument, but I just think Luke had more there. But you did win the writing round, round one. I just think that this round was super close until Tyler. After Tyler gave you that right hook, Luke, I was like, all right, this round's going more Tyler's way.
I realized that I lost a round when he did that. So, yep, I figured. Yeah.
But the directing round was the hardest round to choose, probably. But I had to give it to Luke.
Okay, thank you.
I know Luke talked mainly about the effects, and he didn't really have me there at first, but as he kept talking about it, I didn't really, when I look at Forrest Gump, I don't really think about effects, and he gave me that new outlook on it. So the next round, acting, Tyler, I'm sorry, but I think today is Luke's first win.
It is.
Because Luke won the acting round.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Wait, Luke did win the acting round, Tyler, but you finished hot. You finished good. You won the closing argument.
Okay.
But
half of my strategy paid off. Half of my strategy, because I wanted to win the opening argument, the writing, and then closing.
I really liked your writing argument, Tyler. I will say.
Yeah,
it gave me a new outlook. And when you backed it up more in the closing argument, I think if you could have done that a little bit more in the opening argument, you perhaps would have won.
Okay, fair enough.
Tyler,
but
I think
this one goes to Luke.
Yes. Thank you, Tyler. Listen, I was absolutely terrified after the writing round. I was sitting there very worried because I was like, he just totally killed me in the writing round. I think Ray might have given me too much credit in the writing round, actually. But
I was trying to help you a little bit after you got left hooked there.
No, I appreciate it. I really appreciate it. But yeah, no. But thank you, Ray, for seeing me as the rightful winner. Finally have win number one. So
Tyler, there was no bias. I know that I do like this movie, and I think your argument was good. There was no bias.
I mean, I knew I was going to lose, and
you were fighting a losing battle.
I was talking to Luke during it. I was like, "You're going to murder me in the directing and acting."
I don't think it was much of a murder in the directing, but in the acting, it was.
Yeah, you can't critique the acting, honestly.
Yeah. And it's hard to compete the directing, too.
Listen, I wanted to do this debate just to critique the writing in this movie.
So you still kind of succeeded in a way.
Yeah, and you did succeed.
I did.
But let's not discredit that I got my first win.
That is true.
It was an interesting strategy you took, Tyler.
It was. Yeah. It almost worked.
It almost worked.
He hit me with the left hooks of left hooks during that one part. And I mean, I was literally stammering. I was like, but yeah, this was a very good debate.
It was. I enjoyed this one. I think the internet will hate me more.
Yeah, Tyler, you're making quite a name for yourself.
But you know what? They keep watching the videos, so I don't care.
True.
Tyler, do you want to tell us why people are giving you a lot of hate?
People are giving me a lot of hate because I don't like 2001. And, in my promoting 2001, I posted it to a lot of places that like 2001.
Yep, there were some. I remember when we were filming my video, 5-minute movie reviews. By the way, check that out if you can. First episode out now. We were reading through the comments on Reddit, and I mean, some of them were pretty stupid, but some of them were like really intelligent. They were all insults, but
my favorite one was the one where it was like a 70-minute video with like 70 views at the time. No, I think it was like 15, like 11 or so, like 11 views at the time from a channel called Cinebros with 20 subscribers. What's 34 now, by the way? I'm sure these guys are bastions of insight, and I loved it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's a really intelligent insult.
It was. I can appreciate a good intelligent insult.
Some of them were really stupid. Like, I didn't really know what they were talking about, but that's par for the course on Reddit sometimes.
I need to join the Reddit gang. I think I'll do that.
Good.
I think I'll do that.
Do it.
But do we have story time today?
Yeah, we do. But before we go into story time, we're going to have a word from our sponsor. So story time is mine for this week. And, we've had a few driving related stories to this story time segment. So I thought I might as well chip in with one of my own. And today we're going to be telling the story of the first attempt at my driving test.
Uh-oh.
Spoiler
I've heard
alert.
this before. I'm kind of excited.
This is a good one.
You've not heard this, Ray?
I have not. No.
Oh, you'll love this.
I've heard it, and it's really good.
So I did not get my driver's license on the first attempt, as you will soon find out. It took me 2 attempts, but let me explain what happened. What went horribly, horribly wrong. So here I was, 16 years old. I've been driving. I had all my hours and everything, and I show up to the courthouse to do my driver's test, and it's early in the morning. I'm talking probably 7:30 in the morning, and I get there, right, and I kid you not, there's 10 cars in front of me that need to go, and I think I'm pretty cool under pressure normally. Pressure doesn't normally bother me. I normally am fine. However, I was the last person in line. When you see 9 other people go in front of you, it takes half an hour, and you see some of them fail and some of them pass, the nerves start to creep in a little bit. And so by the time it was finally my turn, I was a ball of anxiety. Let me tell you, I was a ball of anxiety, Luke and Ray. A ball of it.
You were like Luke at work whenever I'm messing with him.
Absolutely. So the woman gets in the car, and where I do it, there are 2 driving instructors. One is mean and one is very nice. I got the very nice one both times, actually. So that was good.
So Tyler, you know how they say there's 2 girls and the guy, and they always say you don't want to get the guy.
Yeah.
I had the guy and I passed first try. He was
Nice.
he was mean, but I mean, he kind of helped me a little bit in a couple of spots when I messed up.
I kind of wish I didn't have the same lady both times, which you'll understand why after I tell the story. But woman gets in the car, and first thing she asked me to do is parallel park, which, no problem. I can parallel park just fine. However, keep in mind, I'm 16. I didn't have much experience with this. She asked me to parallel park behind this big box truck on a city street. Okay. So I had never done that before, but I gave my best attempt. I hit the curb the first time, but she was super nice about it. She said, "Oh, yeah, that's fine. Just try it again." And I got it the second time. Okay. I got it. So I got a little bit of my confidence back. And then, we did the, show me all your lights and everything. We did overnight parking and all that stuff. And then she just asked me to drive around for a little bit, go through some stop signs and all that. And then came the point where she asked me to do a roundabout. Now, I was taught how to do a 3-point turn. Spoiler, a roundabout is not the same thing. So
No, it's not.
I was taught how to do you pull in and back out. She wanted me to back in and pull out.
Yeah, that's what I had to do for mine.
Yeah. Which,
See, I didn't. I did what Tyler did.
Yeah. Which is not what I was anticipating, and it kind of threw me off because I started to go in, and she said, no, I want you to back in. So I had to correct myself. Well, I start backing up, and backing up. And I'm going good. And then she was like, okay, you're a little in the other lane. So just kind of correct it a little bit. And at that point, it's my brain just shuts down for whatever reason. And it's unable to process. So I swerve the wheel and attempt to fix myself. And then I hear a crunch. And then we both kind of just stop and we look. She's like, "Oh, you just hit a mailbox."
Oh my!
Ray.
Now, Tyler,
Ray.
do you want to tell us whose mailbox this was?
Yeah, I want to tell you whose mailbox it was. Ray.
Okay.
This woman looks me dead in the eye. Little 16-year-old kid. It says, "You've just hit the judge's mailbox."
I knew it. I knew you were going to say the judge.
Ray. I'm not done.
Okay.
Who was outside? The judge's
judge.
wife.
Oh,
The judge's wife watched me hit her mailbox.
what'd she say?
She was nice about it, but I was still devastated, obviously.
Yeah, it's an instant fail after that, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She drove back, actually. I didn't even get the honor of driving back.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. She
Yeah.
said she wouldn't even let you drive.
No.
That was a good one, Tyler. That was a good story.
Thank you.
Okay, real quick, guys. Can I, since we're talking about driving stories, I can tell one real quick. Can I tell you about when I tried to get my license for the first time?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, so now me and Tyler live in different counties, so we went to obviously different courthouses. Dude, I went to the Boyd County Courthouse, and man, I tell you what, I'm normally a very normally a nervous person when it comes to things like this. Well, in general, but definitely when it came to that, I was very nervous. I was about halfway through the line. There were people behind me and in front of me when I got there. So, I mean, it wasn't too bad. I didn't have to sit and dread everything like Tyler was doing, because if that was the case for me, I'd be freaking out. Just sitting there waiting would freak me out. But no, it didn't take very long to get me in there. But I actually did a very good job. It is the only time I've ever successfully parallel parked. And I did it. And we go to pull into the parking lot at the end. I had no marks on the thing at all. Perfect. And what do? When I go to park, I go a little too far and I go into the grass a little bit. Up on the curve. I didn't just go up on the curve like gracefully, like a little bit. No, for some reason, I wanted to park as straight as I could. And I just made it worse because I pressed on the gas a little too hard. And it just sent us right up on the curve. Her head flew forward. I mean, she was pretty upset. And I looked, and I don't know how I mustered words at this point, but I looked at her and I said, "So how'd I do?" And she said, "Not good, honey. Not good." I'm always going to remember that.
Oh, God. Did you pass that time though? I missed that.
No, I went off the road, so it was like instant fail.
Oh, that sucks, man.
And I didn't have any marks. I was so upset because I did so good. And
so what you're saying is I'm the only host of the Cinebros podcast that passed their driver's test first try.
I think that is, yes.
And Ray, do you want to hear something hilarious? So I was talking to Mom, and I said, "Mom, I told all my friends I'm getting my driver's license." And she's like, "Why did you tell them that? In case you failed, why did you tell them that? Because now you got to tell them all you failed." And I was like, "Maybe I don't." And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I told everybody I knew that I passed it the first time, even though I passed it the second time. And I haven't told anybody that since. So all my friends and family that that listen to this podcast are going to find out that I lied.
That is amazing.
So yeah, I didn't pass it on the first try. but yeah.
That's funny. That was a good one. Those were both good stories. I liked them.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to bring this episode of the Cinebros Podcast to a close. If you enjoyed this episode, you can like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, or you can follow us on whichever audio platform you are listening on. Be sure to check out Luke's new series exclusive to the Cinebros YouTube channel. And you can follow us on social media at CinebrosP on Twitter, Cinebros Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And if you're on Reddit, we have our own subreddit, which Luke is now the moderator of at r/Cinebros Podcast. Anyone have anything else
I will be
to say?
joining the Reddit team soon.
They will be joining Reddit soon.
Also, make sure to follow the new Instagram page I made for my series on the Cinebros channel, 5-minute movie reviews. And the name on Instagram is just 5-minute movie reviews with underscores in between each word. So make sure to follow that on Instagram as well.
All right. Thanks for watching or listening.